it's related to what you just talked about in terms of when you mentioned Jeffrey Hinton and new language models. So I wrote an email yesterday to Francis Heiligen, and I guess I can explain my idea best by just reading it to you briefly and introduce myself. So my name is Valdimar, and I had an idea that I'd like to run by you. I guess I can run by you just as well as Francis, who forwarded this email to Jason, who invited me to this meeting. I discovered the Principia Cybernetica project as a teenager and later read The Phenomenon of Science, both of which greatly influenced my worldview. In recent years, I've been conducting research and development on natural language understanding systems, with an emphasis on the intersection between large machine learning-based language models and knowledge representation. I've enjoyed observing the ongoing revolution unfold, the evolution of AI that can understand human language and perform astounding reasoning tasks. And to put the current developments into perspective, I reflected on a subchapter of The Phenomenon of Science called The Human Being and the Machine, where Tushkin said, machines will rid the human being of that sort of work and transfer human activity to that level of the hierarchy which is still creative at the given moment. With time, this level will also cease to be creative. The boundary between creative and uncreative work is steadily crawling upwards. And nowadays, just machines are starting to both assist with science and even perform science. It's an interesting paper recently where somebody managed to make GPT-4. I didn't read it thoroughly, but do experiments to the scientific process somehow. And yeah, I myself have been experimenting a lot with the newest model and was able to, I can co-write with it philosophical essays and software. So these models, such as GPT-4, possess remarkable general capabilities, allowing them to reason about a vast array of subjects, encompass knowledge from diverse disciplines, and synthesize disparate concepts into intelligible and engaging texts. And what people are doing nowadays is making more specialized language models. So this is like the general model that cost $1 billion to make. We can make more specialized models for more specific functions. And wouldn't it be beneficial to have a language model that's grounded in a cybernetic worldview? That was the idea that I had. So constraining a large language model is, so there are a few developments that relate to this. So it's possible to constrain a large language model by providing a set of principles for its reasoning. And it's also possible to ground the language model's behaviors or its knowledge in an external knowledge base. Moreover, it has recently become feasible to develop large language models for hundreds of dollars rather than millions, and in weeks rather than months, development previously considered impossible. So I was thinking of the feasibility of developing an agent or a language model that incorporates knowledge from the Principia Cybernetica knowledge base and relevant literature, as well as principles like those described in Francis Heiligen's paper, which was called Self-Organization of Complex Intelligent Systems, an Action Ontology, where he described his worldview, so to say. To try to integrate this worldview, the cybernetic worldview, into the language agent. which could possibly guide the language model's thought process, enabling conversations about topics from a cybernetic perspective, and potentially discovering new knowledge by applying systems concepts to new fields. Much like how reading the phenomenon of science in 2023 allows me to gain insights into the nature of things, long after the passing of its author, a curious individual could engage in dialogue with this agent, a chatbot trained in cybernetic knowledge, to discuss, for example, the emergence of multicellular organisms or the emergence of GPT-4's linguistic competence from the collective behavior of its layers of artificial neurons. This agent could serve as a tool to stimulate people-systems thinking, for example, among students, or for researchers as a cybernetic research assistant for cybernetic studies. What do you think? Have you considered something like this in the past? I had this thought during my afternoon walk and wrote it down right away. And yeah, that's it. And somebody's calling me from. Sorry.
Great.
Yeah, was the email I wrote to him yesterday, and he wanted it to go to you guys, I guess.
The conversation is on CyberCon, if you haven't seen it. But Lou, you have responded that too as well, right? What do you think?
Well, as I said, as you see, you can hold conversations with ChatGPT. They may give rise to interesting ideas. It will collect ideas. If you give it, an engine of that kind, a particular text or collection of texts, it will work with that. So it would be a very interesting experiment to have one that knew the entire literature of cybernetics as well as larger things, and to then proceed to have conversations with it.
How did you do that connection between ChatGPT and your other two little robots? You just do copy and paste between the windows, or do you have a way to link them together?
Well, this is the standard connection that you can use on the web. It's free. You open up a certain page, and then there's a line, and you type into that line and hit the return, and it gives you a response, and then you type into the line, and so on, back and forth.
And sometimes you need to teach us.
But I don't know anything about the programming or or how much you would have to pay to customize such an engine to a literature that you were interested in. That clearly is something that, if it's not available now, will soon be available, but it will cost you.
Yeah, that's a very recent development. Is this open source approaches to do this?
It's available already.
Yeah,
we could do it. We could feed it with a certain, with certain texts. It's fine. This would be, but this means it still has as a basis some other stuff there. It would be just fine tuning with this other set of texts.
And Claudia, you also
go ahead.
Claudia had prepared something to present today, right?
It might be a bit late now, is it?
No. We still have half an hour.
Well, may I ask then another question to Valdi very quickly before? So you said Principia Cybernetica. So I'm assuming, Valdi, you're thinking of a very specific text. When you say that, is this Norbert Wiener, or I don't know which text it is. So
it is a huge project led by Francis Halligan and Cliff Jocelyn and a number of people in Belgium. I think they had worked it on quite a long time, many years.
Yeah.
They're modeling Bertrand Russell's idea of a project, Cybernetica. So they, Mathematica. They're modeling Mathematica and you're trying to do a Cybernetica.
But the idea here would be to take many texts of cybernetics from many authors and give it to the robot.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I wonder, can I ask a question? I wonder, very often people consider, I mean, not many people in a general sense, but in my environment, people ask the question, what is the value of cybernetics? Does it have a value? Is it suitable for solving problems, etc.? What I always wonder is why nobody mentions the equivalent areas of studies: operations research, decision theory, game theory. Why not combine them into a more even general project where all these disciplines are actually dealing with certain types of activities?
Indeed.
Yes, Valdi, I was curious. The question actually came up, but I wanted to hear what you were thinking about the difference between ChatGPT and Principia Cybernetica. Just because you noticed the difference, I think that motivated you to write that email, or what motivated you?
yeah, because it's an intersection of a few ideas. So yeah, Principia Cybernetica is principled, or like it's some kind of ontology or worldview that's based on foundational principles about how systems behave. While ChatGPT doesn't have the principles, it just infers knowledge in general from an incredible amount of examples. So I guess that would be the main difference, and thought of the potential of combining that somehow. And yeah, that's related to another idea. What they do nowadays to make the large language models nicer, so to say, is you can incorporate a set of principles like a constitution into the model, so it isn't racist or something like that. So I was imagining if you can try to constrain it with these principles of how systems work, and therefore enable it to have conversations about more complex systems than more in touch with reality somehow.
Yeah, remember that it's an experiment. The ChatGPT is an experiment. You can watch how it extrapolates language, and when there is a base of a large base of language behind it, it extrapolates in a way that seems more or less normal with regard to that base. And when there's very little behind it, which can happen if you ask some specialized question, then it makes things up. And how it makes things up is interesting, at least to me. That's the place where you want to see what happens with regard to any base that you've given it. You give it cybernetics base, and then you push it with some questions, and it will start making up something that sounds like cybernetics on the basis of its base. And it will incite you to think of something new. The interaction will be interesting.
Claudia, let's hear what's in your mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you guys. Thank you for listening. I'll have to go as well. I might join you next time.
Oh, you have to close? Okay, so keep in touch.